Now, 48 hours before the 31st of August deadline, the Americans conducted yet another strike in Kabul. Now, this, claimed the Americans, was in retaliation to the 26th of August suicide bombing at the Kabul International Airport that resulted in the killing of over 200 Afghan nationals and about 13 American service personnel. Now, at the time, the Pentagon claimed that it was an Islamic State Khorasan planner and another one of the group's members who was in fact taken out in this precision strike by the Americans. Now, WION had first raised some serious questions about the Pentagon's version of events and whether the Americans had even killed an ISIS operator as they had claimed to have targeted. And now, questions are being raised in American media as well. There is a New York Times investigation that has come out that says that the United States, in fact, mistakenly targeted an aid worker who was returning back home to his family. And this resulted in the death of the aid worker along with several of the family's children. And it was not an Islamic State Khorasan planner that the Americans had in fact taken out as they initially claimed. The New York Times has published an exhaustive video report on this subject. The victim, Esmerai Ahmadi, was amongst the 9 civilians, including children, whom the Americans killed in the last of their drone strikes before beating a hasty retreat from Afghanistan. Now remember, the 30th of August, WION was of course one of the first channels to broadcast a report by our correspondent Anas Malik in Afghanistan, who visited that small 2-storied house with a courtyard in the heart of Kabul.
This is the car that was targeted. It's literally shredded into pieces. We're seeing pretty gritty scenes, not definable in words, because the smell of blood. Even now, we've seen human flesh all over the place. The house has been greatly damaged. If my camera person can show you as well, this was the interior of the car. These are the remnants of the rocket that has been fired on the car. The CENTCOM says that while they are assessing the damage, but they have claimed that it was an ISK terror-linked car. And they've also maintained that there was no secondary explosion. There was only one explosion that took place because of the rocket that had hit the car.
And also, WION's Anas Malik spoke to Amal Ahmadi, the victim's brother, who in fact told us that his brother Esmerai was a trained electrical engineer who was in fact working as an aid worker for an NGO, and he was definitely not a terrorist as the Americans were claiming. Esmerai was also amongst the thousands of Afghans who had applied for a resettlement visa in the United States of America.
Yeah, my name is Amal. That yesterday, unfortunately, I lost my big brother and with 3 sons, and also I lost one of my small daughters, and one of my brothers lost her 3 child, and also I lost one of my nephew in here. Yeah.
Now remember, the Americans had initially announced that the drone strike had targeted a key Islamic State Khorasan operator who was again planning to strike the Hamid Karzai International Airport. In fact, the Americans claimed that they took out this individual who belonged to the ISIS-K while he was on his way to the Kabul International Airport. But it was Ahmadi's family that contested the American claims that there was a second blast, suggesting that there was a large stash of explosives packed in Esmerai's car. Amal, Esmerai's brother, told WION's Anas Malik that there was no second explosion as the Americans were claiming. Now, taking note of the New York Times' report, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby has now come forth and said, and I quote him here, "The U.S. Central Command continues to assess the strike, and no other military works harder than we Americans do to prevent civilian casualties." The morning after the precision drone strike, there was a rocket attack that was carried out from a similar white car to Ahmadi's. The New York Times report has shown visuals confirming this. But the killing of an innocent family, fueled by retaliation and without any credible intelligence, in fact adds to the more than 70,000 Afghans and Pakistani civilians who have been killed as a result of US drone attacks that were intended to in fact kill terrorists as the Americans were claiming but instead, all of these people happened to be civilians. While the United States has noted that it is not in a position to dispute the claims by Ahmadi's family, the burden of proof, of course, lies on the Taliban government at this point of time to bring to the notice of the Americans and indeed to the rest of the world that it was a US precision strike that killed an innocent family of several children, as well as upstanding an Afghan citizen.
The US side claiming of an explosion after the missile attack that took place in the absence of a forensic team with material evidence being cleaned up, it would further complicate the probe as and when it goes forward, with the onus lying on the Taliban to prove that indeed these were innocent civilians as it has been claimed by the family.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.